mean, that might be pretty interesting. I'm sure people can relate. Most people have pandemic hair. So, okay, awesome. So it says we're live. Hopefully we are.
Okay, cool.
And if not, I can upload the recording because it is recording. So awesome. So I'm here with Sophie Sheppard, a functional diagnostic nutritional practitioner. That's a mouthful.
It is.
And holistic health coach, and also the host of an amazing radio show that I got a chance to jump on and share some tips about sleep a couple of weeks ago. And we decided that we should do a little follow-up here and talk all things sleep, stress, and digestion, because of course, all of those things are connected and interplay with each other. So Sophie is going to be sharing some knowledge bombs on hormones. We're going to talk about sleep, why it's so important to get sleep, how sleep impacts hormones, how stress impacts sleep, how stress impacts hormones, and how it all kind of fits together here. So we got a lot to talk about. So why don't we start off with chatting a little bit about how all of these things kind of interplay: stress, hormones, digestion. It's kind of this, inner web of hormones triggering, releasing, sleep. It's like it can get complicated, right? So why don't we start off chatting a little bit about how all of this is connected: stress, sleep, hormones, and digestion.
Yeah, I think, well, you kind of said it. It can get really hard to figure out and get complicated. But one of the things I love about what you and I do is we try to make it not complicated for people.
Yeah.
And if you all take nothing else away from our conversation today, know that when it comes to this stuff, the basics and the foundations are so essential. So when we can optimize sleep, when we can optimize digestion, when we can optimize our hormones, these are crucial. And so much of it can be regulated by what we put in our mouth, how we manage our stress, how much sleep we're getting. Like those just foundational things can really make a huge difference, especially when you're talking about more complicated things like the hormonal cascade that happens in women's hormones, which is my specialty, or digestion, which is also one of my specialties. We want to make sure we always come back to the foundation. So I'll just say that first, in case anyone's like, "Oh gosh, it's going to be so complicated."
Yeah, we'll try to speak as simply and actionable, to give some actionable takeaways for like what people can do that are curious about maybe what tests they should get, or that's important, because a lot of people, they know that something's off because they're not sleeping, and maybe their menstruation's off, or something hormonally is just not right. And maybe they even had some sort of Quest test done, but they don't really know, how to make sense of it. Their doctor really doesn't know how to holistically treat it. So I think, why don't we start with talking about how sleep and hormones, the importance of how when we optimize our hormones, how that impacts our sleep, and how when we get better sleep, that impacts our hormones. I think that would be like a cool place to start. And then we can dive into some other fun things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I always like to bring up around kind of sleep is that sleep impacts the menstrual cycle, because while we sleep, we release certain hormones. And when we get disrupted sleep, like a lot of my ladies who have kids are getting woken up in the middle of the night, and they're not getting their REM sleep, and it's kind of stopping their hormones from being released normally through the night. And that's, you got to remember, sleep is a really regenerative process, like as you, I'm sure, talk about all the time, including with our hormones. And our body's really smart. It'll do everything it can to remain in homeostasis, but when it doesn't get its fundamental things like sleep, can really start to cause issues. So sleep, lack of sleep can cause issues. And I actually pulled something for you that I thought you might want. I pulled this quote from a book because I thought it might be really helpful to hear just exactly from her words, from Lisa Henderson Jack's book. And it's on page 191, if anyone has the book. It says that not only does we know that the circadian rhythm regulates our hormones, but this is what she says: exposing your body to light at night disrupts your hypopituitary ovarian menstrual cycle, HPO, which I'll explain in a second. And that can cause not only your cycle to dysregulate, but pain with your period, okay? Early miscarriage, preterm birth, low birth weight, infertility. And when they did studies on shift workers, 50% increase in endometriosis for people who were working through the night.
Wow.
So, yes. So I just thought that those were really powerful words from Lisa Henderson-Jack. And what she's talking about is that just like our adrenals, which we'll talk about in a second with stress, the hypothalamus and the pituitary in the brain are kind of our master control system. And they send hormone signaling to other parts of the body, including our ovaries. So that's what she's talking about. That chain from our brain to our ovaries can get disrupted when we don't get good quality sleep. And that can lead to all of those different issues. It's not just one size fits all. It's what's true for you and how is it getting disrupted and what's your chain reaction. So we really have to look at how we can optimize sleep, getting back on the circadian rhythm for sure, that I'm sure you can talk about more even than I can, but also making sure we're sleeping through the night. I have every woman who comes to see me with menstrual cycle issues does not sleep well. And you cannot fix your menstrual cycle hormones unless you're getting good sleep.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, it's. I know one of the biggest problems right now, a lot of millennials and younger people that are trying to have kids, and I know a lot of people that are having issues. They want to start having kids and they're not able to, and it's and it's stress, and it's not sleeping, right, because of the result of the stress, and then that pressure of, oh my God, am I ever going to be able to have a baby or whatever, that adds more stress, right? And then it's really sad because it's a massive problem right now. Like infertility and just fertility issues are like a huge problem. And sometimes it's interesting because sometimes it can be the really the simplest things, like, how are you managing your stress, and are you getting good sleep, and really laying the foundation and helping people understand how important and powerful it is to get good sleep, and how that plays into and master stress, as I like to say, how that plays into like giving your body the opportunity to have that miracle happen, right?
Absolutely. And I agree. I've been hearing so many calls with people who are struggling with infertility, and it's so frustrating right now because all of the IVF cycles have been paused or stopped. So even if you had paid to get into an IVF cycle during coronavirus, it's probably been stopped. And what's interesting, and I'll shed some light for anyone who is dealing with infertility, is there are so many things that you can do that are simple to support fertility while, like, naturally, and lay that foundation while you're still in lockdown. And sleep and stress would be number one and number two on the top of my list. And I think, it's a good segue into, I did on the radio show, on the She Talks Health radio show, I did some of the common causes behind infertility with Anna Saucier, who's the founder of Cycle Power Summit. And if you are dealing with infertility, would highly recommend going ahead and getting that Cycle Power Summit. But she talked about her journey through infertility and all of her fundamentals. And one of the biggest things she said, and we spent a lot of time on it, was stress, was how much this is affecting her emotionally, and how much right now going through COVID-19 feels similar to her experience going through 7 years of infertility. Wow. So I think that, that's really big. I also want to just say, for people who aren't looking to get pregnant, but I have so many clients that are, in horrible menstrual pain because of their lack of sleep, or because of a million other things, right? We have to look at the whole picture. Yeah. And it's like, you got to look at all of those factors, and it's not just necessarily about having a baby. It's about the woman having an optimal health and optimal life too, Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously I'm not a woman. I am married, but I mean, it's not normal to have painful menstrual cycles, or is that something that, that's not normal, right?
Nope. Painful menstrual cycles is not normal. PMS is not normal. And I don't mean to say that, like, if that's happening to you, you're not normal. That's never my intention.
It's the norm, right? It's the norm, but it's not normal.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always say PMS and painful menstrual cycles are common. They're not normal.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Insomnia is common, but it's not optimal, right? It's not normal.
Right.
It's not what our bodies are supposed to do. So anytime we have a symptom like insomnia, right, or painful menstrual cycles, or whatever it is for you, skin issues, that's a screaming sign, or maybe a little whisper from the body until it becomes a screaming sign that you need to listen and figure out what's going on there at the root. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I do, and I know that's what you do around sleep. So yeah,
it's so great. I mean, that's such an important thing you can't kind of share enough, because it's so frequent that people just ignore the signs and they keep brushing it under the rug until it builds up and it becomes this bigger problem. And I know you're, on a mission to inspire, as many people as possible to really catch it before it gets to, I can't have a baby, or catch it before it turns into something worse. And oftentimes it's human nature to like not change something until it's more painful not to change, right? That's just human psychology.
Totally. Yep.
but at the same time, it's like, if you just like, this is an amazing opportunity because it forced everyone to slow down. And now it's like, now's the time to deal with some of this stuff. Like, if now is the best time, if you're having some sort of weird health issue, if you're having insomnia, if you're having menstrual issues, or whatever, like what a beautiful opportunity where you have the space and actually the time to focus on, looking under the hood and seeing, hey, what's under there, right?
Yeah.
And figuring out, okay, well, now time, it really shouldn't be, an excuse. Or it's like, just address it now so that when the world does open back up, which hopefully is in a couple, sooner than later, a couple weeks, if not sooner, you're feeling, you're already on that path of better balance. And I was talking to a guy last night terrible insomniac, 10 years. And, and we were having this conversation, and he's like, I want to solve it now, but I have all these, he had all these reasons why now wasn't the time. Because, and he gave me an interesting analogy. He's like, it would be like trying to start a diet during the holidays. And I said, okay, yeah, that maybe. And for him, we decided, okay, it's not the right time. But, for a lot of people, it is the right time. And so it's like, it's really, I think it's important to tune in and say, okay, well, what's going on physically with my body, and what is it trying to say? And if you can't understand it, or if you don't have the expertise or the knowledge, then seek it out. Right. And so
I agree. And it's interesting. It's kind of polar opposites. People are either in total holiday mode where they're having all the ice cream and all the alcohol, or they're getting really serious about their health, probably because they're at home and it's really glaringly obvious that it's bothering them. I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. My phone's been ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
So you're not alone if you are somebody who wants to take care of your health right now.
So let's talk. So, let's talk about, kind of getting back to the whole hormones and sleep. What were some of the things, I guess, since we were talking about menstrual cycles and we were talking about, fertility, what would be some of the other sort of tips or strategies outside of, optimizing sleep and starting to, understand stress and what's causing stress? What would be some of the other things that maybe, after people start doing that, which is a huge place to start, right? I'm just kind of curious, what would be some of your other?
I would say if we're talking about a premenopausal woman, so, we're talking someone in her 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, not going through menopause or perimenopause, you're cycling and you're, probably not on birth control or something like that. You're kind of just naturally cycling and you're having issues around sleep. You're having issues around digestion. You're having issues around your hormones and your menstrual cycle. Number one would be like, start tracking your cycle. Just the way you take a food log and you note what foods make you feel good and which ones don't. The same thing's true for your menstrual cycle. You want to note, and you don't want to just note it on what most people think is the main event where you're bleeding. You want to note throughout the month, because your hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are different depending on where you are in the month. So for example, with estrogen, that's going to be the first 14 days of your cycle, and then progesterone is going to take over in the second half. So you might find, and everyone's a little bit different, but for example, a drop in estrogen can leave you feeling more vulnerable to stress, but at the same time, hopefully progesterone is coming there to save the day and give you this kind of, I call it the like keep calm and carry on hormone. It kind of keeps you a little bit calmer, upregulates a neurotransmitter called GABA in the brain, and it usually helps you sleep more. It kind of slows everything down. So the second half of your cycle, you're a little slower. And you can imagine that if you're in like the go, go, go estrogen phase, that's going to be very different than the slower pace of progesterone phase of your cycle. So I always think it's really important to get a basic understanding of what these hormones do and how it affects things like motility of the digestive tract. A lot of women say that they get constipated, for example, right before they get their menstrual cycle, but right before they bleed, and then the opposite happens. So understanding those rhythms is really important. And the number one easiest way you can do that is by tracking your cycle and using an app like the MyFlow app or Clue, or there's so many out there. Hormonology is a really fun one where every single day you get a new like a horoscope for your hormones. So depending on what day you are, and it's very funny. It'll be like you're more prone to want to shop today. So keep your credit card hidden away. And it's true. It's really funny when you start leaning in and listening to this stuff. You realize, oh my God, that makes so much sense. That's why I'm doing this today. Versus a man. You guys have the same hormones all throughout the day. You have testosterone that gets released in the morning and then in the afternoon and then later in the afternoon again, the little tiny bursts. But, you have the same hormones throughout the day. Women are totally different. It's the same reason why we struggle with weight. Women weigh themselves. They're like, why am I up 5 pounds? And my boyfriend's done ketogenic diet and he's lost 14. It's because we're metabolically different than men, and our bodies are actually designed to store fat so that we can have babies. So there's a lot of that to it. And the first thing you can do is track your cycle. And if you are having cycle-related issues, sleep-related issues, stress-related issues, then and you can't figure it out on your own, and we can talk about some more strategies, I always go to what's called the Dutch test. And that is a test that I run in my practice. Other holistic and functional practitioners run it, and it gives you a full comprehensive look at your hormone breakdown. So it's very different from when you go to your gynecologist or a fertility doctor who's going to look at the blood serum levels of your hormones. This test will look at how, for example, estrogen is getting metabolized through the liver. That's very important for people that have things like PMS, painful breasts, acne, right? Because those are clear estrogen dominant type symptoms, and we need to understand why that's happening in the body so we can correct it. So whenever there's like a big issue like that and you've kind of tried everything, you're eating your fiber, you're drinking your water, you're sleeping through the night, you're managing your stress, and you're exercising and you're still not seeing a change, that's when I say, seek more help, get that test, and that's going to give you a whole lot of information you didn't have before. And
so if I'm not mistaken, that's a urine test, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And is that something that people can it gets sent to their home and they sort of just like urinate in a cup or something? And how does that work? Exactly.
Yeah. So you need a Dutch practitioner, someone who's, able to run it like myself and to interpret it for you, because it's pretty complicated. It's many pages, and I should show you one. It's fun to look at. Anyway.
That's pretty much the gold standard for really understanding your hormones, right?
It is.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and you can run it at home. So like a lot of people have been like, oh, I guess I can't work with you because I have to go to some office and coronavirus. And I said, no, I just run everything through your home. So I just ship it to you. You take the test, you urinate. There's some instructions in the kit and you ship it back out. And a week later I get your results, and I usually go through it with my team. So I usually go through it with like a medical doctor or a naturopathic doctor, or a nutritionist, or an RD who's at the Dutch Precision Analytical is the company. So I usually will review it with them and someone else on my team, because I always like to have like 3 eyes on someone's stuff so that they get multiple opinions on what to go do with their health,
That's fantastic. That's good to know. I mean, it's so important to when you're interpreting anything, I think it's important to get, some second opinions. That's great to know that you do that. Yeah. And I'm a total believer that you really can't manage what you don't measure. So I love that you're suggesting that women that, track their menstrual cycles. And what's interesting about what you said regarding the hormones and like, you know, the little horoscope thing, it's so true, because our hormones are on this circadian rhythm, which is a clock, right? So certain hormones get released more in certain times of the day, and especially at night, right? Like in deep sleep, we're getting a lot of, you know, human growth hormone and testosterone, and all these amazing things are happening right throughout the night. But it's interesting to think about how that actually can play into decision making. Like, and perfect example of this is for me. Like I used to get really hangry, and like insulin, right? So whenever I'd be hungry, I like mood change, and it's like, whoa, what? I'm getting short and like, you know, hangry, and my wife now carries around snacks for me. I mean, not anymore, but you know, so it's like
another thing that can be caused by not getting enough sleep is your blood sugar dysregulation and that hangry feeling like you're going to kill somebody.
You know, they actually did a study, Sophie, that showed that it was even after one night, I believe it was less than 5 hours of sleep. Yeah. People were as insulin resistant as type 2 diabetes after one night.
I've heard that before. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But it's not crazy, because it makes so much sense. When we're sleeping, our digestive system repairs itself. You know, our stress hormones are supposed to be relaxing. You know, all the hormones you just mentioned being released. You know, human growth hormone, testosterone. These are things we all need. And I mean, we can't like outrun the basics. You know, you can't supplement your way out of not getting a good night's sleep, right? And I'm not, and it's something that we talked about before we got on, is like, I'm not saying this from a place of judgment either. Like, I'm still working on my own stuff. Like, I'm a theater nerd, and I have always stayed up late. My boyfriend is still in the business. He also is a late night person. I'm down here in Jacksonville. My mom and dad stay up pretty late as well, you know? And I just got my Dutch test back, because I always like to run it once a year, and my melatonin's slightly under where it should be. And so that's telling me that my pineal gland in my brain isn't really creating enough melatonin at night, which, as you know, means I probably need to stop watching so much late night TV and turn the lights down low, maybe get some of the circadian rhythm blend from Vibrant Blue oils. If you don't know them, they're awesome, to support my circadian rhythm and my melatonin. And like, then that goes into a whole other thing, which is that, you know, melatonin and prolactin are, when they get secreted during sleep, they actually help your gut lining. So they are going to help what's called the epithelial cell there, that lining in your small intestine, to regenerate itself. It's also going to support the diversity in the gut microbiome. And those two things are huge too. I know we're going into gut health, but you know, this is why we had to have this whole conversation, because it's all connected. It
is all connected. And I think that's a good transition into talking about, you know, stress, sleep, and gut health, because I know for me, and in my programs, one of the big things that I address for people physiologically is leaky gut. And we talk about leaky gut, you know, and because it's so common with people that suffer from insomnia. It's so common. And obviously there's the stress, you know, a lot of times people store stress, you know, in their guts, right? You know, and sometimes we store it in our neck and shoulders, sometimes our backs, but a lot of people store it in their stomach, which creates issues. But it's really, really interesting. And why don't we talk a little bit about, you know, how gut health, sleep, and stress, sort of the dance, that all that. There's a lot to talk about there.
It's such a something so close to my heart, because I've dealt with all of the above, and you know, it's like, I always tell my story, and it's like, people don't understand. I had leaky gut. Okay, so I was diagnosed with IBS, and I was given a proton pump inhibitor, which reduced my acid flow in my gut, which we now know is like, I'll get to in a second, is the worst thing you could possibly do. But anyway, so I'm 7-8 years down that line, and I probably had leaky gut this entire time, causing so much internal stress on my body, right? Yep. And then you add in, I'm a theater nerd, so I'm not getting good sleep. I'm on the birth control pill, which further dysregulates like my thyroid hormone and my issues in my gut, right? And then you get down the road, I'm under a massive amount of emotional stress, and my thyroid falls apart. So you can see how like all these hormones are also connected to the gut. And so with leaky gut, this is something that is really interesting, because 8 years ago when I was, you know, diagnosed with leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability, what this is in the gut lining, in the small intestine, you got to think about your small intestine like, I always think of it as a saran wrap thick. It's only one cell. And, you know, if you put like a toothpick through saran wrap, it would create a hole, right? Very easily. Well, your small intestine is where the outside world meets the inside world. You eat a burger, goes down you chew it up, goes down your esophagus, into your stomach, into your small intestine. And that's where, by the time it gets to your small intestine, that's where you're supposed to be absorbing nutrients. And you're also supposed to have a chemical and a physical barrier in your small intestine that keeps out toxins and bacteria and pathogens. What happens is that due to mental, emotional stress, hybridization of seeds, genetically modified organisms, pesticides, chemical exposures, NSAIDs, medications, all of these things kind of add up, and they can pull apart what's called the tight junctions in the cell lining. So they're kind of like this, right? They're supposed to be tight. And what happens with all that stress and all the NSAIDs and everything else, chemicals, they start to loosen. And when they loosen, all of these toxic chemicals and pathogens can get through, and it can trigger massive food sensitivities. So these are my ladies and men with, I don't know what to eat, everything bothers me. Yeah. It's because you've lost what's called oral tolerance. Your intestinal lining, it's leaky gut, but what we know now, 8 years later, is this whole other layer, which is that when we have leaky gut, you have to think about the fact that that's in your gut. That's your immune system. Your immune system is now hyperactive. This causes autoimmunity. It can get the inflammation can get in through your lymph and your liver, and then all through your entire body. So that's why when, you know, it's like, why do I have autoimmunity in my thyroid for me? Well, I had a weak link there, you know, like that just genetically, that's where it went because it was easiest for it to go there, but it started in my gut. And so how we tie this back to sleep and to stress, and this is an epidemic. And I think, you know, it's not really like, do I have leaky gut? It's like kind of how much leaky gut do I have, you know? Yeah. I mean, to be really honest, Dr. Kara Fitzgerald's the one that did the research on that. Like they're kind of starting to understand that it's a sliding scale. Yep. And when you have leaky gut, it can cause candida, overgrowth, and like parasites and things like that. So it's a really nasty stuff. But back to sleep and stress and how this impacts it. So we know that stress directly influences leaky gut directly, not indirectly. Like stress equals leaky gut. Like it can cause that. So just like there's not even a complicated story behind that. I won't even go there. It's like I will tell you, I get the trifecta every time. I get the trifecta of what I have when I was going through my health journey: anxiety, gut health issues, menstrual cycle issues, like every single time with women, because we're like running around and we're stressed out and it's causing all this leaky gut. And then we have chemicals and all this stuff, right? So we have to learn ways that we like to manage our stress. We just do in order to have healthy digestion. And there's so many parts. Okay, I'm going to go into how this affects your hormones too. So when you have leaky gut, it also means that you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need. And we need nutrients from proteins and from fats to build healthy hormones. So if you are having a leaky gut, you're having inflammation, which can affect your hormones. Inflammation can directly disrupt your ovulation, creation of hormones, but it's also possible that you're just not even creating enough hormones. So even if you're eating the perfect diet, but if you have problems in the digestive system, this could mean that you're not creating enough of thyroid hormone or progesterone or estrogen. So this is a big issue. And then we put on sleep on top of that. And we know that good sleep helps you to build your digestive resilience. It's when things rejuvenate in your gut. It's when melatonin and prolactin release, which support keeping out those toxins and giving your gut the ability to regenerate. So anything less than 8 hours, and we're going to have a dysbiosis starting in the gut, and that can just cause more and more issues. So it does get complicated. Yeah, it does. It does. And I think the thing though is that everything is connected, and that's actually a good thing. So, you know, like your stomach pain is related to your insomnia, it's related to your menstrual cycle issues. You don't need to see 17 different practitioners to get that handled. You just need to see one that understands that your body's connected.
Yeah, and thank God for people like yourself that have the education and the knowledge and have transformed their own pain journey into power to help lead other people that on a similar path with less suffering and save the time. Because I know there's a lot of people. I mean, a couple of years ago, I had really bad leaky gut, and it's not a matter of if you have it, it's like how bad is it? Where is the scale? And what are you doing to solve it? And are you even aware that you have it, or are you ignoring it? Are you ignoring the signs? Yeah. And it's so incredible. Our bodies are like so amazing at telling us, hey, if you're getting bloated and gassy, or your stools have food in it, or if you have like liquidy weird poops going on, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Please don't ignore that. Your body's saying, hey, you got issues. Like you need to do something different.
And I promise you, it's a lot easier to deal with leaky gut than waiting so long like I did to then have to deal with autoimmune issues for the rest of your life. Like I promise. So,
yeah, and regarding sleep too, I know the gut regarding sleep and gut health. A lot of melatonin is produced in the gut. And I read it was like 400 times more melatonin than the pineal gland, which was like a new sort of discovery a couple of years ago. And it's like there's so much in the vagus nerve, right? That control, So there's so much going on. And so let's take a step back and I think it's important not to get too. So there's all these cascades. It's all this inner where do people start? And obviously I'm big on sleep and the biggest problem people have with their sleep, not being able to sleep, is stress, right? And we know that you just said stress causes
all the other stuff.
So really the root of all this, in some way, is stress.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's important to address that, not to I think a lot of times we like to skip over that, where we just want to solve the physical, just fix me.
Let me take the supplement, and I'll fix that, and it'll be great.
Right. And the way I see, in my practice, I see a lot of people always want to address insomnia with a physical solution, and it's not because you can't really see stress. It's not like there's but you can feel it, and it's important to be able to start to see it and feel it, because when you start to understand what your triggers are for stress and what your pattern is, your stress blueprint, I think we might have talked about that on your radio show.
Yeah.
These patterns that we have, it's like, why don't you start to address that, and at the same time start to address all the physical, sensation, the physical manifestations that are cascading from you not dealing with, and just your breathing, simple practice, right? It's like learning, belly diaphragmatic breathing, learning to, take a second between tasks. I mean, this is, I don't know, probably, I guess, because of your client that you just described, it's probably similar. Like my clients, I work with a lot of type A high performers, and these guys, they go back to back to back to back to back to back to back. It's like phone call to phone call, it's just even on our sessions, listen, don't jump on our session, take 5 minutes. If you're 5 minutes late, just take a breath.
Yes.
Slow down. But again, now this is why it's such a great opportunity to really start to address your stress, start to address your digestion, start to address optimizing your hormones, because for a lot of us, we have the opportunity to slow down. We've been forced to slow down, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, so what are some things
I agree. I disagree with everything you're saying. Yeah.
Well, I think it's not rocket science, but a lot of times it is like this. It's just, we tend not to think about it because we're caught up in our own minds and our lives. And it's it's so easy to overlook. So what do you recommend for your clients to help them, better manage their stress so they can start to heal?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to note that physiological stress takes 30% of the cake, just it's like operating expenses of a business. There's just things that happen throughout the day that are going to cause kind of stress. And I think people think stress, they think mental, emotional stress. There's a lot of buckets of stress. So, you know, if it does feel, I mean, you do need to deal with the mental emotional, and I'll get to that in a second. But if, you know, for while you're trying to get started and get a handle on this, there are more tangible things that you could look at. Like, you know, like, since this is a really simple one, but like, look at how you're cooking and taking care of your house. Like, do you have a lot of chemicals in the house? Are you using aluminum foil? Are you putting toxic chemicals on your skin? That's a huge stressor for the body in and of itself. So, so I just think that, you know, there's also like, you could start something like that too physically, but emotionally, okay. Biggest thing I have been telling my clients is to couple things. If they feel like they can't leave the house because of coronavirus, if you can, step away from your computer, close it down, turn your phone on airplane mode. I know you all hate me right now for saying this. But literally, think about it like this. You got to protect your boundaries. You've got to protect your boundaries.
I love that.
No one else has access to you unless you give them access to you.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're bringing this up, because we all need to hear it. And it's so easy to just let people, you know, people are bad at drawing boundaries. Bad. And that
we're bad at it.
We're bad at it.
I'm bad at it. I'm working on it.
Well, here's the thing. And think about why are we bad at it? Because, you know, we learned it from our parents that we're bad at it, and they learned it from their parents that are bad at it. So it's like this generational. Yeah, hopefully your parents are.
No, but it is
true. So it's.
I've had that. You know, and part of this is having those real conversations, guys. Like, you don't get very far. If you realize you have a boundary issue with someone close in your life, you have to address that with that person, right? I mean, this is stuff that I've been working on with my subconscious mindset coach for the past 9 months. And he's helped me rewire my brain and really think deeply on these things, right? It's not just that there's a boundary issue. It's like, like Devin said, where did you get it? You know, and so I look at, you know, the way that my mom has never had a boundary with me because she loves me so deeply and she gives me everything, right? That's not a criticism of her, but it's a lack of boundary. And so, and also, but that's what I do. I like overgive. I'm a people pleaser. Yeah. I will put my clients above myself. And so that's what I'm trying to uncouple for myself. And everyone has their own journey, their own thing that they're working on. Like, your coach is not perfect. Your coach has a coach. Right? Yeah, so it's important to identify what your triggers are and to really commit to working on them, and dealing with the mental emotional stuff is so key. I mean, and like, there's other parts of it too. There's trauma, and it's really loud.
I think that they're starting to mow my lawn, so I'm going to shut my door. So everyone, I apologize for this. Hold on. No worries.
Now we just get to look at Devin's fish.
Okay, we're back. Is that better?
Okay, yeah, it's better.
Oh, sorry.
You know, Oh, no worries. I was going to share publicly that, and I talked about this on my second radio show episode. You know, I suffered with a lot of emotional abuse, and I felt silenced. And I think this happens to a lot of women, whether it's in the workplace or at home with an abusive partner or something like that. But emotional abuse in that way that silences you, oftentimes women end up with thyroid issues, because that's where you communicate. It's in your throat. It's interesting, right? Yeah. So when you look at this stuff, it's like, I know it's kind of hard to look at, but like, we got to uncouple that. And that took, you know, therapy. It took meditation. It took journaling. It took tapping, EFT, you know, where you tap on your body and you release things. Essential oils. I mean, it's not just one thing that you can, that fixes everything. It's like, I do little pieces of it. So if I can't close my computer and create a stopping place, I at least have my parasympathetic essential oil blend from Vibrant Blue Oils next to me, and I put it on my mastoid bone, which is where the easiest way for you to stimulate your vagus nerve, which drops you into the rest and digest part of your nervous system. Or I take 2 seconds, well, I guess 6 seconds, to breathe in for 2 and out for 4. When you breathe out longer than you breathe in, you automatically drop into that rest and digest. Or I start my day with a gratitude practice or a meditation practice, or 5 minutes outside going for a walk and putting my feet on the sand or the grass. These are simple, short things that we deprive ourselves of. And when we deprive ourselves of those things, the body knows. The cells in our body literally understand that they're not being taken care of.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love, I love the good, better, best approach, because, a lot of people say, well, I just don't have time to take a hot Epsom salt bath, or what, there's always a reason. You either have, my coach says you either have results or you have reasons. You can't have both. and I love it. And it's so true, because it's like, we don't have, there's so much opportunity to learn simple techniques to upgrade. We now have these amazing companies. You were talking about the other buckets of stress, which I love that, because a lot of times I talk a lot about mental, emotional stress, but there's the physical stress of your environment, of the skincare products and all that. There's a load there. Right?
Oh, yeah. Think about the fact that I was completely out last week. My neck was completely out. I've been to chiropractor 3 times and just came back from the acupuncturist. That's a physical stress. I'm out of alignment. The nerves can't get things to body parts and organs. That's a stress too, So that's when you really gotta, when your body starts physically breaking down. I had to look at that last week, and I'm like, oh, right. Because I have been nonstop going since coronavirus started, because more people need my help. So now this weekend I need to rest. It's not just like one day you are perfectly fine. It's a practice, right? This is a practice.
and it's like, it's so amazing that we're talking about boundaries, right? We're talking about, this starts with giving yourself permission to really slow down, giving yourself permission to experiment, giving yourself permission to be uncomfortable. Because sometimes trying new things is uncomfortable, almost always, right? But that's when we grow the most, is when we are allowing ourselves, we're giving ourselves permission to really feel what we're feeling, and to express that in healthier ways, and to seek support. Give yourself permission to get help. So many people, they have this idea like, oh, I'm going to do it all on my own. And it's almost like an ego thing, where it's like, wow, no, I can figure this out. I'm going to prove it to everyone that I'm going to figure this out on my own. And it's like, guys, that's getting in your way. Like, there are people, right here, and a lot of other people in the world that are very knowledgeable, that can support you on this journey. If you feel lost, if you feel overwhelmed, if you don't have 10 years of education on, hormones and digestion. And, so it's like, it's really important I think there's this underlying layer of permission that people need to grant themselves, to begin then to get more connected to their bodies, to then know what action to take or what support to seek, to then really start to, it's like, that's, I think for me, that's that permission piece is important, especially women. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have this conversation with a lot of your clients.
I do.
It's like they fight you. It's like, oh, but it's like just letting go. So right now it's so important just to let go of what's not serving you, and people
absolutely
try to hold on to it.
I love that you just brought up permission, because we don't give ourselves permission. And even clients, they come and they're asking me for permission. So I always try to start, I do start with kind of holding that strong container of giving them permission, because I think that's important to get them started. But then, a couple months into the journey of us working together, I challenge them to start making those permissions for themselves, start to relax into the fact that they have everything that they need. But when most people are at the point where they're hiring someone like me, they don't realize that they have everything they need. They need a moment of that support. But if you are listening to what Devin said, we are like unprogrammed. Like Ani talks about this all the time, to not give ourselves permission. And I would go one layer even deeper beyond the lack of permission. We need to give ourselves the ability to love ourselves.
Oh yeah. Yep.
A lot of the physical manifest, and this isn't, I don't like to say it in a way that's, blaming, but a lot of the physical manifestations that we experience come from not giving ourselves good sleep, not giving ourselves good nutrition, these types of things. And so we have to look at the emotional component there. And it was true for me. I did not love myself when I was sick. Right? Because if I truly loved myself, I would have put myself first and really made the effort to heal myself. And eventually I did do that.
Right.
And I didn't know that I didn't love myself.
Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of people. It's tough because it's like if you really get to it, if you start peeling back all the layers, why do people not practice self-care? It's because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they deserve it, or they don't. And if you go, like you said, I love that you brought it to that level. It's like they don't think they deserve it because they're not compassionate towards themselves. They don't love themselves. Yeah. And then that gets in the way of connection. And then it's like this whole cascade from that crazy belief that we somehow in this amazing universe, we're not worthy because we, didn't do X, Y, and Z. It's just like insane. But that subconscious programming, gets installed at that young age. And then it does keep people from doing the stuff that we're talking about, self-care, managing stress. And then that leads to this cascade of hormone craziness and menstrual cycles and thyroid issues and insomnia. And it's like, if you really get down to it, it's like this onion that you're peeling back, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so, but I love that we're getting to this like really deep level, because at the end of the day, it's if you really start asking yourself better questions, like this is what comes up, right? This is kind of what bubbles up. I don't feel like I deserve to take time for myself. Or I'm trying to prove something to myself or someone else, so I can't take breaks in between calls or whatever it is, right? Or I mean,
right. Or I should do this thing. There's a lot of shoulds happening right now. I know I should have taken the Epsom salt bath, but it's almost like we make self-care just like another thing on our to-do list, and that becomes another stressor. So I think it's all tied up in there, and I think it takes years to uncouple that stuff sometimes, depending on what you're working on, what else you have going on, if you have kids, and it's not something to solve overnight, but certainly there are times when you need help, and certainly there's times for testing and all of that when it's so extreme. I don't want people to come away thinking, wow, she just told me to take an Epsom salt bath and I'm like throwing up from my period every month or something. Like, that's not what we're saying. Stuff there that you could try first, and then seek help too. I think that I always say that you can become the CEO of your own health. I never want my clients to have to rely on me for, years after. I want them to get what they need and move on and live a vibrant life, because you
Absolutely.
you have the capability.
It's amazing. And I'm seeing some comments come through here. And someone asked, for those of you tuning in now, this is Sophie Sheppard. Someone asked who you were. I guess little name box is not up, but So I'm seeing some comments come through. Some people are leaving some comments. I don't know if you can see that on here.
Yeah, I can see it. Carrie, nice to meet you, Carrie.
I'm on here giving us some great information. Thanks, Tom, for being here. So again, we're talking about and let's start to kind of maybe wrap this up, because we've been going through this, which is great. I mean, it's been a really enlightening conversation. Hopefully people are gaining a lot of value from it. Seems from the comments people are. But let's kind of go back and kind of tie all this together with, we're talking about what are some, let's make some tangible action steps. Because I think I'm always a big believer in giving people, just some simple things that they can commit to, that would start to, let's just say, touch on these three areas: sleep, digestion, and stress. So maybe give us some of your best strategies, tips, or maybe something that you feel would really serve people right now with what's going on in the world that has been working really well for your clients and all the the women that you're leading.
Yeah. Okay. So stress, you guys ready? Stress. This has been the number one thing that's been helpful for all of my clients, myself included. Give yourself a boundary. There's that B word again, in your morning and in your evening and around your intake of news. So typically what this has been looking like is do not turn on your phone, put it on airplane mode in the morning. and create a morning ritual, which everyone rolls their eyes. Oh my God, should we talk about morning ritual? It can be so simple. I mean, it could be going for a walk outside if that's possible. It could be doing 5 minutes of meditation or even just breathing. It could be drinking warm water. This is a big one for all my clients. This kind of goes into digestion, is warm water with half of a lemon squeezed in, with some fresh ginger or a ginger tea bag if you just are not about grating ginger, and a cap full, like the cap of the apple cider vinegar in the morning, because this is going to give you an infusion of vitamin C, which is, flying off the shelves in supplement form. So you get your vitamin C in, you get your antibacterial, antiviral in, and you're supporting digestion from the beginning. And ginger is, in addition to all those things also, is very grounding. So if you're a type of person that wakes up and you're kind of like, okay, I gotta do my whole day, I gotta turn my phone on, I gotta talk to this person, that's like me. You have that in the morning and to kind of ground you first thing. And when you're doing that, combine that with no phone, no news, nothing happened overnight that you need to know about until you take care of you.
I love that.
I promise. Like nothing happened that you need to know. You literally can know in 5 minutes, and your life will be exponentially better because you took care of yourself first.
That's so true.
Yeah. So, play with how that works for you. You might have young kids and morning isn't the right time. But you get to decide that. I can share my ritual is that part. And I try to give myself, now with not having to commute in New York City, I try to give myself a full hour if I can. So I'll do the lemon water elixir. I'm doing the Chopra Center. So Deepak Chopra has a 21 days to abundance challenge.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing, you guys, amazing. So I would definitely encourage that. And I've been just doing that meditation and that task every morning and giving myself that little leeway to have that time. And if you don't have time for that, write 10 things you're grateful for and why you're grateful for them. You can't be anxious if you're thinking about what you're grateful for.
That's so true.
Your brain doesn't work like that. So, so those things, and if none of that works, even just getting your face in the sun for 10, 15 minutes in the morning, this is going to reset your circadian rhythm. It's going to support your sleep, but it's also going to just give you such a boost of hopefully good energy and love and happiness. Digestion, super simple. That deep breathing I talked about, and you talked about diaphragmatic breathing, but that sounds crazy and weird, diaphragmatic, blah, blah, blah. Just take a breath in for 2 seconds and out for 4 seconds, 3 times. So you breathe in 2 and you breathe out for 4. And you do it a few times. And what this does is it puts you in the parasympathetic nervous system state. And when you're in parasympathetic, this is what happens. Every single 7-step process of your digestion gets triggered. So your saliva is released, your pancreatic enzymes are released, your gallbladder releases bile. So you can emulsify fat, you can break down proteins, stomach acid is released. Okay, your sphincter muscles relax. Digestion is a relaxation event. We forget that. And then we sit there and we eat in front of our computer, we eat in front of the news, or we don't chew our food and we don't concentrate on the amazing taste that is coming into our mouth, right? And then we wonder why we're bloated or we're having all these issues with digestion. It's because we've forgotten that, and the stress we're having is cascading into the digestion. So I swear,
I saw you make that post, I think this week on one of your channels about, hey ladies, slow down. Like, there's one thing you got to do: slow down before you eat. Don't eat in a stressed out state. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. Mindful eating, that is again, it's we're not saying take probiotics and all these other things. It's just take a breath before you eat. And how amazing is that? That you literally just walked us through what happens when we do that. It's from a neurochemical level. That's being created. I mean, it's kind
of cool. The body is
super
amazing.
Cool. It's amazing. Okay, so we talked about digestion. We talked about stress. What are some things around sleep? I mean, me, I love to talk sleep. So what are some things that you recommend to your ladies and the people that you serve to help them?
Yeah, I would say you're probably the expert, but I'll just say that Epsom salt baths are really, really powerful. And one, you can add some essential oils to them. Again, that's always really great. You want to add the oil to the Epsom salt directly so it can absorb into the stones. I actually learned that this week from Jodie Cohen on the radio, on my radio show. She talked about stress. Definitely check that episode out if anyone's interested in stress. And that one's a big one for me. I notice when I do that, I always feel better. And I would say the other one is the blue screens. Those are the two. And I think maybe, again, with kind of the boundary, the bookmark, I know we talked about this when you were on my radio show. It's like we need bookmarks or breaks in our day. We need to separate ourselves from our day and then our sleep. It's like you expect your brain to just decide it's tired and it's going to go to bed. And I am so guilty of this. And we were just talking about it before. I've been really dealing with some bad insomnia this week. And I know it's because my brain's going, I'm thinking about my clients, I'm thinking about my business, I'm thinking about all this stuff. And, I've tried GABA this week. I've tried deep breathing this week. I've tried Epsom salts this week. And I've just had to do a combination. I've kind of had to really step it up. And even that, I'm still struggling. I got my essential oils on. So maybe you have some good guidance on that. But yeah, I mean, all of those things tend to work. For some reason this week, they're not. And I would say if you are a menstruating female, note down when you're not sleeping in your cycle. Like if you're not sleeping, and, it's in the early part of your cycle and estrogen is high. So there's some studies that show that that's actually okay to get a little less sleep because of the phase you're in. So see how you feel the next day, but note it down because that could be a big part of it too. And the other part to just know is that bad gut bugs like to party at night in our gut. So that could keep you up too.
I like that. I'm gonna have to steal that from you. Yeah, that's so true. One of the things I tell all my clients is, and this is a challenging one for me, is not eating too close to bedtime because, that's when our body's supposed to heal. That's when all these things are happening. That's when, and it's for people that, especially now, because you don't have this, maybe unless you're really disciplined with closing out your day, which can be challenged sometimes for some of us. It's like eating too late or not drawing the boundaries yet, right? Well, I'm guilty of yesterday. This happened to me. I took a late call. I thought it was going to be a quick call. It ended up being a longer call. Eat dinner too close to bedtime. Check my sleep score this morning. I did not get enough deep sleep. My REM sleep was off. So it's and I felt it. I felt it this morning. So I think it's all these little things can definitely help. It's just a matter of really, I think, being committed. And like I said, are you committed to the results or the reasons? And so we all have a lot of reasons right now, probably more reasons than ever for why we can't do some of the amazing things that you just shared with us. So I think it's just so important to.
And it also, if you've been struggling with chronic illness for a long time and you are more committed to the reasons and the results, that's okay. It's okay to not think you have to be perfect and on it all the time. I think we have to give ourselves that permission too, that, there are times to really focus in on it and go hard and kind of focus and get that stuff done. And there's also times to pause and reflect and decide what you want to do. And neither is wrong. What Devin and I are saying is that when you do make the decision to commit, really fully commit mentally, emotionally, all in, because that's going to make the big change. No one else can do it for you.
I love that. I love that you said that. It's it really goes back to that, the old adage, know thyself, right? So it's really the more self-aware you can become, the more you can increase your awareness about how you're feeling, about what's going on with you, and give yourself permission to either continue to do what you're doing or give yourself permission to make a change. The quicker you're going to be able to have that self-love, whether it's taking action or not taking action. Either way, the quicker you can get to that self-love place, the quicker things are going to get better for your sleep, for your digestion, for your overall health. So I think this is a good place to kind of round out this awesome conversation. And
so great.
Let's definitely so share where people can find you, share about your radio show for all the women that are going to watch this. Where if you're taking, I'm not sure if you're still taking clients right now or what that looks like, but why don't you share a little bit about the people, where people can find you and how they can, get in touch with you.
Yes. So my brand is She, S-H-E, but all my social channels, my radio show is called She Talks Health. So shetalkshealth.com is my website. You can apply to work with me. I have one spot open for the next 3 to 6 months. So if you're interested and you want to get on my calendar, I do offer 90-minute complimentary consultations to determine if you're the right fit for a 6-month coaching program or a 3-month coaching program with me. So you can do that there. There is a 10-day digestive and hormone reboot also on my website and on my Instagram links. So if you are kind of like, I just want to start learning more about this, you get full access for your entire life and it's really low cost. And the radio show, She Talks Health, is on voiceamerica.com. It's also on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. And I don't know, thank you so much. Happy Friday. Like, this was a great conversation, and you guys can message me. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are with your clients and with taking care of your own health. That's really important. It's so, I think it's really important now, especially now more than ever, to really practice what we teach, and because it is easy to slip into that over service mode, and a lot of people need the help, and I know that's something I'm constantly working on is drawing those boundaries. But I want to thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, leading women and helping people really understand the power and the importance of optimization for hormones and digestion and stress. And so thank you for turning the pain into a passion and really serving people, because obviously everyone knows that was listening to this, you're a wealth of knowledge and an amazing coach. So
it is my humble pleasure.
Yeah. And I look forward to more of these conversations. If anyone liked this, you like to see us do another show on something else outside of, or sleep, stress, digestion, or whatever, we can talk about a lot of stuff, obviously. Leave us a comment below or any questions you might have for Sophie or myself. And we'll leave it at that. Everyone have a fantastic Friday, and we'll see you next time.
Talk to you soon.
All right.